Hello and welcome to this episode of Akrinos Access. I'm Eric Matei, joined by a very special guest, Charlene Nichols. Today we are talking all about the metaverse, this whole world of mixed reality, and what that will mean for optometry now and into the future. Charlene, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Akrinos Access.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Eric. It's exciting to connect with your audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, look, I know that there's a ton of really cool things for us to get to exploring here in this conversation. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And I suppose let's take it from the top as far as, a bit about your background about the optical industry, and then we'll kind of jump right into this whole vision of optical and metaverse and all that world.
Thank you so much. And I could sum up my career in one word. It's solutions. When I started, 20 something years ago, I was a kid entering the industry. I didn't know nothing about optical. I fell in love with the people. Towards the end of my career, I was developing logistical solutions through e-commerce, B2B e-commerce. The company I worked for, it was one of the first companies to deliver B2B e-commerce logistical solutions for the industry. And when you're working with chain stores and doctors' alliances and lens manufacturers and wholesale labs and retail stores, you get a really complete perspective on the industry. When I resigned to bring the solutions that I felt I had in me to a different level, and to a level that was more focused on, is that Mike?
I think we're good now. There was a little feedback, but I think we're good now.
Okay. And to bring my solutions to a point where they were more focused on the independent sector. And I felt like the only way for me to really tailor solutions specifically for independents was to jump in and join them behind to join them in the foxhole, jump in the foxhole and just see what it was like in there. And it was a lot of what I expected and some surprises. And all I've done, from like any good soldier, when you step on a landmine, you limp along and you try to figure out, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, what am I missing? What sort of protection are we missing? What sort of tools are we missing? What sort of innovations are we missing?
Sure.
And a lot of those innovations that we're talking about today in the metaverse were definitely not in my mind when I started this journey. I didn't even know these things existed. But if I'm going to embrace being a pioneer and I'm going to embrace being an innovator, look at some of the things that we have, some of the technologies we have, iPhone, Facebook, computers, cell phones. These are all things that pioneers created to solve radical gaps in our society. And
Sure.
I think the metaverse is one of those solutions. I did not invent the metaverse. We all know that. But I did handcraft the optical metaverse. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so on that note, let's kind of put this in context. I know you and I were having a conversation prior to going live here about we kind of experienced a lot of the same upbringing as it pertains to where technology was impacting our lives, right? Like, we both remember growing up with the rotary phone, and we remember AOL and that dial-up modem so you could chat with your friends. And now here we are toting around, smartphones, and our children tote around smartphones. Okay. So let's kind of put this in context. What is the metaverse, right? How can we wrap our heads around what this next iteration is? Because quite frankly, I got to tell you, the world of having a smartphone with social media, and whether this is professionally with Akrinos and growing our brand and helping the industry, or whether this is personal stuff, right? How does it get any better than what we've already got? Like, what is the metaverse going to do that has not yet been done?
Oh boy, we do not have time for that answer. So let's talk about mixed reality, because I think mixed reality is a better topic than just the metaverse.
Sure.
Because if your concern is, will a digital world that we're going to teleport to with little digital versions of ourselves in some space and time that nobody really, like some dimension, who knows where that dimension is. If that's really what the metaverse is, then how the hell can it help me when I got 2 feet on the ground here? That's a very logical, skepticism. But there are limitations in the physical and digital. So let's call the Web 2 the digital world. There are limitations in the physical and digital world that we never really figured out. And there are limitations in the digital world specifically that are almost impossible to get around now that the digital world has developed in a way that has created some pretty unfair advantages for people that don't own the digital world. So
Sure.
let's answer your question with a specific use case of an optometrist. And let's identify, before we talk about mixing realities, let's identify realities. So let's identify the physical reality for an optometrist. This is their practice. This is the 4 walls that they exist within and all the humans that work in it. So if a human, whether it be a patient or the doctor or an optician or the front desk staff, when they're out in the world in their community, they're representing their physical, domain, their physical reality. They might say, oh yeah, I work at ABC Optometry and this is what we do here and this is how we do things differently. And now they're doing something physically to draw attention to the business. So this is physical reality. Now we have digital. Now, the really difficult thing about digital is that you're relying on a computer or a series of digital infrastructures to represent who you are when you're not there. Now, this could be very good or this could be very bad. Look at Google reviews, look at websites, look at social media. There are lots of ways that we are represented digitally that are helpful. And there are a lot of ways that we are represented digitally that are harmful, because no matter how many chatbots we create, no matter how many apps that are designed to allow us to be available in real time through digital media, it really isn't possible because digital connects to our physical worlds. And in our physical worlds, if we're being present physically, which is certainly true for an optometrist during the working hours that they're there, we can't really utilize the digital world in a way that is effective. Based, like if I wanted to just sit all day and tweet and spend time on LinkedIn, I can use the digital world very effectively, even as an optometrist, but I can't do that because I've got to be in my practice physically. Now,
Sure.
telehealth is like a Web 2.5 experience. So it's like, okay, now I'm creating a portal to like an app where I can actually be in 2 places at once. I could be here physically managing my practice, and I can be present with you in the digital world that you've chosen. Now, doctors didn't say, hey, I got a good idea. I'm going to create a portal and I'm just going to, send an alert to every human being in creation and say, hey, just so you know, telehealth is an option. No, that's not why telehealth exists. Telehealth exists because patients were banging on the digital door and saying, we need you to help us here. This is our preferred place to communicate, which is digital. So providers created a portal to make that possible. Problem, solution. Fine. Now, let's talk about the virtual world. In this particular case, this is virtual reality. We're going to call it the metaverse for this particular example. Because just like there's multiple digital realities, there's multiple virtual realities. Metaverse is only one. However, it is the most complete one. So just like the internet is a connection point for Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and AirMeet and Microsoft Teams and Akrinos.com and, drsmith.com. It's a connection for all of these things. The metaverse is very similar for all things virtual currently. So currently, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I dig it in that I'm kind of understanding it.
Now, here's the thing, Eric. Even in the wild west of Web3, with the Facebooks of the world and the Microsofts of the world and the Gucci's of the world, no one has started putting the pieces together yet. They will, but they haven't yet.
When you say putting the pieces together, what do you mean putting the pieces together?
The specific realities that every human needs to interact with and creating that seamless experience so that I can choose the reality that's most appropriate to me in the moment that I'm in real time, and I can still have a complete experience.
That's pretty far out.
Yeah. So let me give you an example.
You left me speechless. I don't think anyone has ever left me speechless.
Well, and let me give you an example. We're going to do an exercise here. Do you speak Google?
I'm thinking like every 80s and 90s, like alt reality, sci-fi kind of weird, like everyone's in these little boxes, just like on a shelf,
no.
operating with their minds, you know?
So,
but I know that's not exactly what it is. I mean, I follow what you're saying, and it's well, it's kind of cool when we get back to like what you were saying earlier with the study with the school age children that went on the field trip, and then based on the feedback from the field trip, they realized that when compared to the whatever that the norm was and feedback from kids who went physically to the aquarium experience, all of these students reported the same experience. So I get that, but it's still like the total kind of alternate reality. Fascinating. Okay,
let's
so continue.
call it a supplemental reality rather than an alternate reality, because an alternate reality is true VR, where you're like going in and dinosaurs are chasing you and you're like, yeah, play the game. This is amazing. That's an alternate reality. You're like,
bones. Can you break bones in the alternate reality?
I think you can. You can. And I'll tell you why. If you're an idiot climbing Mount Everest virtually and you're not concerned about the space that you're in, and it just so happens that you walk to an edge of something that's high enough up and you fall, yes, you can get hurt. Your physical being can get hurt. So and that's why they're creating these VR parks. But I want to go back to an example, because the people who are listening to this are either going to continue to blow off the metaverse and all of the other things that Gen Z and millennial consumers want that we detest. Let's talk about them. E-commerce. Oh, we hate e-commerce. Yeah. Oh, we hate TikTok. We hate metaverse. We hate Web3. We hate NFTs. We hate crypto. And we can list a million other things that we hate. But you know who doesn't hate these things? People between the ages of 20 and 40. Now, some of them do. Some of them are skeptical, but they're going to come around because that's their world. It's going to happen. Just like people hated social media when it started. You can't live without it. It's your identity.
Yes.
And it's going to happen very, 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 very soon in Web3. And we can't wait for it to happen to be a part of it. We have to be a part of it now.
Well, there was a chat here with our live audience. Says, but we have the capacity to create realities, right? Like we dream, we read novels, some write novels, create art, what have you. VR and AR gives it a structure in a form that perhaps it had never had before. So absolutely. Okay, so now if we're here, let's talk about then what does this future look like? Or I say the future, I mean, and we can look at this. I mean, I suppose we don't need to go too far into the future. I mean, in the long run, in the future, we're all dead. So let's maybe look like in the coming couple of years, how are we going to be seeing this stuff embraced? And really, particularly, Charlene, the question is this: to what degree is this going to be embraced by the masses, whereby then an optometrist actively growing a practice, wanting to grow their career, grow their practice over the course of their career, how they can show up in this space to meet the public in this space?
That time is now.
That time is now.
That is absolutely now.
So what are we talking about? This is a widget you put on your web. Is this another widget on the website?
So okay. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's get real serious.
Sure.
So there's one word in 2023 that will be very important for you to not only have, but for you to provide on any website. And that word is virtual. It is going to be a part of the Google search algorithm.
Yeah.
It already is now.
But and if we think optical virtual try-on, I mean, look at what virtual try-on has done for those practices that have embraced omnichannel experience, online optical, virtual try-on. I mean, this. So you now you're hitting on something. Not that you weren't before, but now you're putting it in context.
This is more relevant. This is something. this is something we understand, right? That's why it's
Correct.
hitting, everything is relevant, but it's what's most relevant. Like you have to start there. So the reason virtual is a word that Google is going to be very they're going to reward anyone who talks about or delivers virtual experience on their website for one reason and one reason only. They know that people are scouring web 2 looking for web 3, and they don't want to miss the boat on web 3 by not being a good champion and partner of web 2, because the competitor of web 2 is real web 3, which is blockchain. I mean, the only reason that blockchain and crypto hasn't completely annihilated web 2 is because of the volatility of it. But there are platforms like Decentraland where when you want to go any further, you have to plug your wallet in, and you have to, you know, really like make a commitment to be a part of that platform. And some people are afraid to plug in their MetaMask wallet, assuming they even have one. So
what?
Say that again.
I'm afraid. I feel like I need to go close the blinds and shutters. Like I'm afraid. I feel like it's like the onslaught of this next kind of like a Terminator type, you know.
Well, here's the deal, Eric. When I started this, I did not know the depth and breadth of this world. And I
Right.
only
Yes.
researched it because I figured if I'm going to help the industry put a foot in this part of the world, let me see what I'm getting them into. Like,
No. Amazing. Amazing.
and
Amazing.
I mean, I did my due diligence because I feel I didn't want to say, oh, let's come into the metaverse. And the metaverse was like a place that we shouldn't be. That wasn't like, let's say it was like the dark web or something, but there are very practical, very healthcare related solutions. There are hospital experiences. There are
Let's drill into that. Yeah, let's talk about this, because I think that this, and I got to tell you, coming into this, I'm excited to get to this part of the conversation, because coming into this, look, Charlene, you know as well as I, public health need for care, whether we're talking in eye care and vision care or any specialty, but drilling into our industry, the public health need for routine vision and medical eye care continues to grow. So now it's a matter of how can we, as an industry, how can providers better deliver care to the masses, right? So yes, so speak a bit about, you're mentioning healthcare, hospital.
Hold on. Let me just take a pause here.
Sure.
No eye care provider, whether you be an optician, optometrist, it does not matter. No eye care provider will ever need to ask that question that you just asked again if they participate in the metaverse, because the metaverse gives patients and people a direct voice to, you know, I had a conversation with David Rips from Younger Optics the other day. It took the metaverse for me to get there. I've been trying to get in touch with that man for so many years. Four unique eye care conditions that not only I, but most of the providers in my network knew very much about, have been identified before we even launched the metaverse. Why? Because we called it the Optical Metaverse. There was a young woman, this is a true story, Eric. Young woman reached out to me in LinkedIn. She is somebody who has a condition called visual snow. I've never heard of this condition. Most people in my network have very little experience with this condition. The woman has never really had an eye doctor care for her condition. They've made her feel like maybe she's imagining it because they knew so little about it. They didn't even understand that it was a thing. And she has felt isolated the majority of her adult life because she couldn't get any eye care provider to have a serious conversation with her about what she was experiencing so that she can get care and empathy and solutions. There's 3 other examples of that. We haven't even live. And already we have created a portal for people who have been underrepresented, and they are running and they are begging me, please, can you help me? Can you know me, I get emotional.
That's pretty cool. Wow. So there's already been 4 cases of people who never had care before and came into the optical metaverse, and now they've gotten a diagnosis and they're getting treatment.
No. Their treatment and well, yes and no, but their treatment and their diagnosis has nothing. We're not taking credit for that. What we're taking credit for is giving them a platform that they feel is powerful enough that they want to use it to communicate to the industry, because they believe if the optical metaverse exists, it's only natural that
Sure.
they're counting on our industry to come.
Yes. Yes.
They're
It's
counting on
fascinating. Fascinating. And at the same time you're sharing that, someone in the chat shared the patient education and like what this can do, what a virtual experience can provide. And by the way, I mean, is it fair what the virtual experience can provide in patient education? On that note, is it fair to have metaverse and virtual experience as being synonymous?
No.
No. Okay. Darn it. I thought I was finally figuring this out.
Not any more than you can say that the movie theater is synonymous with the movie that's playing.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
I dig it.
so it is very plausible. Now, of course, the metaverse is a virtual place in that you don't go there physically. You take your soul and a little digital skin and you wander around and you still see and hear things, and it still impacts you through visualization or through audio stimulus, which they're working on as well, but mostly through visualization. So if that's true, if the only way that you can really be impacted by the experiences through these virtual worlds or through your eyes, then who better to be a champion for metaverse augmentation of every aspect of the world than us?
Okay. So where do we go from here? I suppose from that standpoint, I mean, I think the bigger thing is also perhaps to put this into context of adoption and how big is the opportunity right now? Because mind you, there is something to be said. Well, there is something to be said for getting into things on the ground floor and perhaps having an opportunity to realize a radical opportunity, radical ROI. There's also something to be said for opportunity costs, getting in things on the ground floor, as opposed to there are other maybe more proven methods to get out there and grow and what have you. So I suppose on that note, again, it's a matter of adoption. How do folks get involved? I mean, to the viewer right now who maybe has an established practice and is maybe looking to grow this practice, maybe they're a multi-location practice. They're continuing to add associate doctors, or continuing to add specialties to the practice. What does the metaverse mean to them, plugging their practice into this?
Let's talk about a similar elusive topic. There was a buzzword for a long time, and it still is, of building a dry eye center of excellence. Okay. Everybody wants to have a dry eye center of excellence. And most people, when they hear that term for the first time, they don't know what it is. They can kind of guess, they can kind of think about the tools that would go into a dry eye center of excellence. They can probably guess a couple of instruments that would be the usual suspects in that, but they don't say, now that I know a dry eye center of excellence is a thing, I want to immediately understand what my ROI is going to be. Well, no, you've got to do your research. You've got to figure out, what are the instruments that are going in? Who are the different companies that are providing these instruments? What kind of service do they provide? You've got to do a lot of research. You don't get paid for that research. No one pays you. No one says, oh, doctor, you're investing in research that's going to get you an ROI down the line, so we're going to give it to you up front right now. No, you've got to make that investment. You've got to make that investment because you believe that it's worth it. Now, we knew emphatically, I can spill every ounce of blood in my body that I would say there's just a bet on this industry not embracing the metaverse. Okay. It's not going to happen. But the reason I built an optical metaverse with frame companies and amazing consulting companies and equipment companies and opticians who are educators and optometrists who are educators and key opinion leaders who have loved and owned this industry. We even have a board. We call it the Metaverse Visionary Panel. Irene is working on that. We're bringing experts from all sector of the industry. The reason we did that is because people are going to come because they're curious. Curiosity is going to win on this one. They're not going to come because they want to make money. They're not going to come because they want to profitize on this. They're going to come because they're freaking curious. And we're going to let them come to that conclusion for themselves. But before we talk about what you're going to gain, let me talk about what you're going to save. Facebook ads and Google ads and all other advertising modems that are available right now are unpredictable at best. They're very elusive to eye care professionals who have not studied things like algorithms and content creation and how to really get your content in front of the right audience at the right time to get that sweet spot of return. So a lot of them are investing money right now in Google Ads, in Facebook, in LinkedIn, and anything else that they can after they read an article and someone says, you get rich by doing this. Okay, I'll throw 10 grand at that, whatever that is.
Sure.
Everybody probably look at that bottom line at the end of the year of what they've invested in marketing and shed a baby tear because they don't even know if they got a return. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Most of them don't even have the tools to really assess that from an analytics standpoint. The point that I'm getting at is if you say today, I'm a doctor, I opened up a metaverse practice, and you release that press release into your community, everyone's coming. Everyone's coming. You know why? Because LensCrafters doesn't have a metaverse. Warby Parker does not have a metaverse. America's Best, no metaverse. Who else doesn't have a metaverse? Oh, I don't know. Everybody. Have a metaverse, and everybody's wondering, I heard this term. Facebook said they had a metaverse. I haven't really seen it yet. Then Decentraland. I didn't know what that was all about. But Dr. Smith has a metaverse. You know what? I'm going to go to Dr. Smith's website. The clock agrees with me. And I'm going to see what does this look like through Dr. Smith.
Sure. Yeah. Fascinating. I mean, it really is. This is absolutely fascinating stuff, I tell you. And, you know, I suppose early on, my understanding of all of this early on was kind of thinking, you know, it was like a gamer's ultimate kind of playland. But, you know, now we're getting into things where it goes beyond kind of that world. And even, you know, think of any one of us, as we were talking about what we're talking Web 2 and social media as we know it. You know, I mean, that's something we don't do like anything. It's like you're not living every waking hour in the social media world. No, you go in and out of it. So it's similar here with the metaverse and that experience and that virtual experience, but then also being able to, in the same way we experience in Web 2 and social media, you still have a tangible, in-person, physical, human element of it as well, right? And I suppose so. On that note, maybe speak a little bit, and seeing as we're kind of running short on time here, maybe speak a little bit of kind of what that would look like. Perhaps if there is an audience member out there that concept just resonated with, right? What about these cold starts? You know, we're working a lot of cold starts. What about this young doctor who has this vision for a cold start? It's like, you know what? I'm going to have that metaverse presence just as I do in brick and mortar. What would that look like?
Well, I mean, there was years ago where they were putting oxygen bars and nail bars in optical shops. I mean, they were doing this because they wanted to be different. They wanted to be unique. They wanted to be exclusive. And they were running out of ways to do that with frames and lenses. They were trying to do something creative and unique. But I want to go back to something that we have not talked about yet. And it's really the only thing that matters. It isn't about Web 3. It isn't about Web 2. It isn't about any of this. It's about the people. The people that need this are not you and me. Because, you know, we can live or die with it. I'm over the age of 40. You're actually in that millennial sweet spot. But you don't behave like a millennial. So I'm not going to put you in this camp of I'm chasing down anything virtual and I'm going to tweet everything I can. I'm not putting you in that bucket. But there's a lot of people in that bucket, and that bucket's growing. Our industry never properly figured out how to serve millennials. It's still a topic that we talk about after millennials being in the market for 15 years, and now they're the dominant consumer market. Gen Z is right behind them. And if you thought millennials were confusing, you try to figure out what each Gen Zer wants, because there might be billions of them, and each one is an absolute individual. There's no way to put two in a box. Like, forget it. There's billions of boxes. And you, as an eye care provider coming into the world now, opening a practice, not only have to deal with the complete chaos that this industry presents right now to anybody trying to open a business as an independent. Let's face it, organized chaos, but chaos. Do you agree or disagree?
Chaos, organized chaos.
I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean it like there's more questions than answers, right? Like, okay, what frames do I carry? What lenses do I carry? What labs do I use? What insurances do I provide? How do I get into this insurance? How do I get into that insurance?
We make it easy. But continue.
Definitely. I'm talking about the non-biased practice owner who
Absolutely.
wasn't smart
Right.
enough to
Yeah.
have a communication with Eric Matei and totally wipe this
No,
chaos from the plate.
you're
And make
absolutely right.
it
It's a lot of stuff. There's a ton of considerations, ton of processes. So you're absolutely right.
So add to that the fact that the consumer that they have to serve changes their mind every microsecond about what's relevant to them and what they like and what they love. And the only way for you to stay on top of that is to be plugged in, because those changes occur in real time. I mean, I have never in my life witnessed anything so responsive as this emerging consumer who and you mentioned it before, you're following me on LinkedIn and you're seeing I've opened up the doors to the Web3 world. These are AI artists. These are, you know, people who build metaverses. These are, you know, people who develop blockchain and crypto and miners. I mean, just forget it. Crypto miners. The job descriptions are endless. Now, what's the first thing you ask someone when they sit down at your desk? What do you do for a living? Well, if they say, "Oh, I'm a metaverse developer, and on my side hustle, I do mining and I look for ETH," and you're like, "What the hell did you just say?"
Good. I thought I was the only one. All right, good.
Is that going to be a good look? No. You will be like, "Oh yeah, I don't myself invest in crypto, but I appreciate you want to build a rapport. How could you build a rapport with these people if you don't know anything about them?"
It's fascinating. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
But I mean, let me ask you a question. Do you think that's a valid point? And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that, because the patient experience is paramount to everything.
Well, I mean, on that note, I'll open it up to our live. I know we have some folks joining us live here. I'll open it up to anyone who wants to hop in. Talking. And Charlene, so why don't you serve up that question again? Serve up that question.
Do we believe that patient experience is one of the most important things that we can focus on when we're not just talking about the metaverse, but we're talking about all the tools that we have to give the patient a good experience?
Hi guys, so my name is Dr. Irina Yakubin. I work alongside Charlene on the Optical Metaverse. So yes, I do have a bias. I'm announcing that now. But I really do think that, patient experience matters. In fact, there are some, very prominent ODs whom I follow who focus on the patient experience, and their philosophy is if we can deliver something worthwhile to the patient, we can demonstrate, our skills and help solve their problem, they're going to send all their friends and family to us. And that is so very basic because it's word of mouth. And I mean, in this day and age, when we have, social media and like advertisements, a lot of people kind of forget that this aspect still exists, but it really does. I mean, if you have
absolutely
right, like if you have a great experience at a doctor's office and you build a rapport with that doctor, you're going to want your family to receive the same care, your friends to receive the same care. Some person you generally think is nice to be like, hey, this person's good.
So that's where we're talking and to that point, serving the patient experience, where that meta experience is part of that full experience. It's not at all replacing the human element. It's likely not at all replacing, at least not for a number of years. It's not replacing even the in-person physical element, right? Like at times still coming into a physical location. So and I think that's important to point out as well, right? Realizing that this is kind of like the front end of what we're seeing is happening, and certainly happening in other industries and other facets of day-to-day life, right? So Glenn,
well, and I think it's important to point out, Eric, that the metaverse is not delivering a single experience that has not been engineered and handcrafted by humans, by people. So that's why I think it's important for eye care providers to get in and be involved, because if they have a voice about what should or should not happen, then this is their chance. I mean, we built this platform to include all of the feedback that we're getting. That's why we're building a panel. We don't want people to think that we're just building this because it's a relevant, timely subject that we want to be cool. I mean, we really see this as an opportunity to be a facilitator for our industry so they don't miss this opportunity. Because frankly, it is startling to me how few people are really paying attention to this topic. It's not something that we should be blowing off right now. We should at least be paying attention.
Sure. Yeah. So, okay. So on that note, to kind of tie things together then, how can folks learn more? I mean, what's going on here? I know you have some big things coming up right around the corner, some big events. How can folks get involved, register, attend, learn more, contact you if they want to inquire more about this, or if they want to take this leap with their practice?
Yes, thank you. So we're going to be speaking at the Vision Expo. They were nice enough to invite us to come talk about the metaverse on September 15th at 11. I would just show up at 11 a.m., probably around 11:15 a.m. And we'll be talking about the metaverse very specifically, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. We'll be also doing a lot of recording and speaking to different key opinion leaders at Vision Expo, because that's where we all kind of are gathering. It's going to be a great show. We have a lot of our vendors there, so we'll be asking them to talk to us, and share their feedback. And then the Optical Metaverse itself goes live October 7th through the 10th, and we will have different ways for you to interact. So if you don't like the idea of creating an avatar and going into a virtual world, we will still have the classic My Vision Show experience, which is always very enjoyable, where you can meet just like we're doing now in a video style experience. So you'll have choice whether you want to connect virtually or through, a video conferencing platform.
Fantastic. Excellent. And how can folks register for this?
Myvisionshow.com will always keep the up-to-date, registration, or you can go to Eventbrite and you can just search in Eventbrite, the Optical Metaverse. It comes right up. Also, LinkedIn is a great place to stay connected because that's where we're constantly sharing information. So if you search the Optical Metaverse in either LinkedIn or Facebook, you will find our communities, which are constantly talking about these things.
Fantastic. Well, Charlene Nichols, thank you so much for joining us here on Akrinos Access, talking about the metaverse, this world of mixed reality and optometry. We certainly are super excited to be a part of the optical metaverse because we see it as an opportunity for Akrinos to connect with amazing people just in another form or fashion, in the same way we would across social media or other channels. So we're right there with you, excited to see this kick off at Vision Expo West. On behalf of all of us here at Akrinos, thank you for tuning into Akrinos Access. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on the socials, and visit akrinos.com for updates. Wherever you are, whatever you're up to, shoot for the stars. Have a great week.
Thank you.